maybe even finished compliance, there's a new set of regulations. It doesn't make sense. They're strangling our small businesses. And those are the ones, the small businesses, because they don't have the money for lawyers and compliance officers like the big corporations do. They're the ones that get hurt by this excessive regulation. And I think sometimes what we end up seeing is we see a scheme where what can't be accomplished through the Congress and through lawmaking and through legislation gets accomplished through the regulatory process. And I'll give you an example of that. The healthcare law, 2,000 plus pages. There are going to be 30,000 pages of regulations attached that Kathleen Sebelius and HHS are working on to define in their terms, not what was voted on in Congress, but to define in their terms what this healthcare law should look like. So whenever we turn it over to the regulators, we are giving them power. They're unofficial, they're unelected representatives, and they come up with the scheme. And so that is one of the problems with regulations. And I think this administration has been aggressive. 2 days ago, we heard that EPA is going to hire 230,000 new employees because of the clean air regulation. So you have to be concerned, and you have to be concerned not because you don't want a clean environment, not because you don't want to be good stewards of the environment, but because it's killing our economy. There has to be a balance. There has to be a reasonable approach to keeping our environment clean, to keeping people safe. We had one of our hearings in Oversight Government Reform was with OSHA. And Mike Kelly, and maybe some of you met him, he was here for my hearing in the district. And Mike Kelly is a car dealer. He has a few car dealerships, and he was asking a question of OSHA. And he said to OSHA, do you really think you care more about my employees than I do? I want my employees to be safe. I want them to do well. We have profit sharing. We have all sorts of benefits for them. I want them to do well. But if that person doesn't put on his hard hat after I've told him 10 times to wear a hard hat in that bay, or puts on his safety glasses, it's not because I don't care about him, it's because he doesn't comply with the rules. And that's a different issue. But so these regulations, and we heard it yesterday from several at the Center State breakfast, they're really getting in the way of businesses being able to do what they do best.
Okay, on deck. Richard Weiskopf will be second, and we have Mr. Zemansky from Buerkle.
Yeah, right here.
If you want to come
I
up.
think you can hear me.
Okay. Yep, go ahead. We can't all repeat it.
Since the Republicans took control of the House, unemployment has slowed down, or employment has slowed down. The stock market is down 20%. There's more gridlock than ever in Congress. And as you stated, there is even more uncertainty in the business market because every 30 to 60 days there's a threat of a government shutdown. And then we have stupid decisions being made, temporary continuation resolutions, super committees, okay? Now, and you just said we need to find common ground, which I think everybody would agree with. But yet, when you defend the fact that the Republicans don't have a jobs plan, you say there are 8 bills in the House, in the Senate, that the Senate won't consider. So you put all the blame on the Democrats. That isn't fighting common ground. Secondly, you challenged us to call our senators and tell them to vote on those bills, which I wish they would. I believe in up and down votes. Okay. Well, if I call my senator, will you call Mitch McConnell and tell him to stop filibustering everything in the Senate that tries to do anything? They even filibuster bills
Okay, so we got your question. Is that?
and it would also,
I mean, sir, you got 2 questions. Is that?
well, no, will you call the senator, your senator, Mitch McConnell, and tell him to stop filibustering everything that tries to go through the Senate?
Okay, so we have your.
I will call my senator and tell him to vote on those bills.
Okay, here we go.
I'd be happy to reach out to Mitch McConnell. I don't have a
No, we
problem
can
with
tell
that.
him to stop the filibuster.
But tell him to stop the filibuster on what?
On everything. Where have you been the last 3 years?
Sir. Well, in my thoughts, I was saying, this is going really well, we're being very civil. Let's, you've asked your 2 questions, give her a chance to answer, and we'll go from there, okay, ma'am? All right.
Let him answer the question.
So the first question is, would I call Mitch McConnell and ask him to stop filibustering? The answer is yes. But my next question is, stop filibustering on what?
Well, if I can answer that to you, then it means you're not aware of what's been happening in the Senate for the last 3 years.
Well, I've only been in for 9 months, but I don't, I'm happy to call him up and tell him to work more cooperatively, but my frustration is, and the reason I say that is, because the question is, and there's people outside the signs, do something. And all we can do is pass a bill in the House. We have a bicameral system, it comes from the House, the Senate has to pass a bill, and then it has to be signed into law by the President. So there's only so much we can do. I do want to address your comment about unemployment. This President passed a stimulus bill of $1 trillion and told us unemployment wasn't going to go above 8%. It's at 9.1%. So we, again, looking for the common ground, we've got to be good stewards of your money. So we can say to that bill, spending money doesn't really work to create jobs. The private sector creates jobs. We need a government that will get out of the way and create an environment for businesses to do well. So because the President did, to his credit, come up with a jobs bill. And we're trying to look for the common ground there. How can we support that? And what in that bill can be supported to get the American people back to work? I agree with you. I hear your frustration. Something's got to be done to get the people back to work. This economy is absolutely, it's just stagnant, and something needs to change. So I appreciate your question. Thank you.
Okay, on deck will be Sheila Zek, I believe Zek from Onondaga, and right now we're gonna, Richard Weisskopf.
Congresswoman, I've been a physician in this community for many years, concerned very much about public health, and I'm also very concerned about the Train Act, which I will call the Runaway Train Act. This act will greatly decrease the ability of the EPA and the Clean Air Act to enable us to have clean air. This act will put off and indefinitely put off regulations regarding soot and smog and mercury and dioxins which come off of power plants. These regulations were there for a purpose. They're going to be indefinitely suspended. I'm very concerned about this. We have people in our country, children, elderly people that are susceptible to lung pollutants. We have people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and heart ailments who will be subject to worse pollution. There are 2 amendments also.
Sir, can we, do you have a question?
Yes.
Can you go?
I'll be very brief.
5 minutes later.
I just want to make a point that the Clean Air Act was passed by a bipartisan Congress under President Nixon in the 1970s. And to gut this act, I think, would be terrible. This is about, as you have said, business and industry trying to reduce costs versus the health of the public. Which is more important? As a nurse, with your nursing background, I would think that you would be very concerned about this. I'd like to know how you're going to vote on this bill.
I guess I would echo what I said to